Welcome to Americana Archives. Today's headline is Unique Colony. The subheadline says, The Amish Settlement in Lancaster Hills and its picturesque quality, Amish children and their odd dress, an Amish meeting. It says, Drive right around into the lower lane, boys, and we'll take out your horse and feed him. Such was the welcome, modified of course to fit circumstances attendant upon the newcomer, that greeted each visitor who drew up at the gate of a Lancaster County farmhouse, where an Amish meeting was being held one glorious Sunday not long ago. The stranger might have thought that there was a lack of cordiality about it. It really didn't sound like the fulsome and conventional phraseology of what is known as polite society. But without asking us two Gentiles who we were, where we came from, what we wanted, etc., etc., they simply made us welcome. And what a sight the lane was. There were 65 yellow canvas-covered wagons dotting the avenue under the trees and sprinkled over the landscape back of the barn. 65 vehicles, so nearly alike in pattern that you would have thought you were visiting a wagon factory and that here were the results of large efforts on the part of the builders who had followed one sample. When we got better acquainted with their various owners, we asked how they ever told them apart, how they got the right horse to the right shafts. Oh, we just look at 'em, we know 'em. One man said he recognized his because the back of it was peppered full of shot, the result of a target practice by the boys at home, who hit the wagon instead of the mark. Another said he had a little block nailed to the floor of his wagon for the comfort of his short-legged wife. The block couldn't be moved without taking up the floor of the wagon. And so the fine distinctions were developed, until the whole 65 wagons did appear different after all, and what may have seemed an awfully easy mark for the evil-minded small boy, whose propensities were duly considered by the astute Amishman, wasn't so easy as it looked. It might be proper to observe here that the wagons were not furnished with whips, neither is there a whip socket, nor even a hood over the front. If you should look very carefully in the bottom of the wagon, however, you might find a rather tough hickory switch or two, but that is only a probability. The Amishman observes the spirit of the injunction implied in the saying, a merciful man is merciful to his beast. It would take nothing less than a horse show to get together a finer collection of equanimity than was seen at friend Abraham's that day. Many worldly Lancastrian owners of roadsters are ready to admit that the dust doesn't drop on Amish outfits when there is opportunity for a test of speed. It is no race, you know, on the excellent roads there, even if the broad-brimmed driver doesn't happen to have a whalebone to touch up his nag with. The heavy harness used is strong enough to draw a load of coal, while it is equally serviceable at speeding a few miles with a half-ton or more of Amish wagon and family. The passengers of the 65 yellow wagons crowded the two large lower rooms of the farmhouse, and with the large overflow for the porch, where the droning voice of the minister, who preached in pure German, could be plainly heard. While the speaking was just a bit too deep for the Gentile listeners, there was enough in the way of pictures everywhere to entrance, and it was good perhaps that we shouldn't get too far gone in the sermon. Just opposite us, in a row, were a lot of youngsters, ranging from 2 to 6 years apparently, whose conduct throughout the meeting generally was as demure as if they had been 10 times those ages. Beside us, around us, were big lusty Amishmen, in their strange-looking clothes, sitting in thoughtful attitudes, following carefully every word spoken, although a few of the younger men, in whom the spirit was willing doubtless, but the flesh weak, dozed and bobbed their heads. The whole scene was one that was with difficulty given a place. So close to Philadelphia as 70 miles, and the stranger did not need to be told that he was witnessing one of the most curious survivals in America. One which, by the way, excited the attention and comment of Professor E.B. Tyler, the noted English archaeologist, went on a visit to this country some years ago. The people are worshipping after the manner of Reformation days, and they present a curious phase of life to the student of religion and history. It is not difficult to understand why the rest of Pennsylvania doesn't know more about the wonderful quaintness and the unique interests of this bit of the land, greenwalled in Lancaster's hills, and watered by the Conestoga, the Cocalico, or the Pequea. For conscientious reasons, the hard-working farmers of Amish menace persuasion there give scant encouragement to the man with the pencil or camera, and so the intensely picturesque quality of an all-day meeting is a comparatively unknown quantity. Philadelphia gets a glimpse now and then of a Lancaster County Amishman on Chestnut Street, and one man is enough to cause people to turn their heads for a second look. But think of 60 or 70 of them in a crowd. all with broad-brimmed hats, long straight hair banged at the forehead, and cut straight across the back of the neck. A rounded bowl, frivolous folks say, and tailcoats with no lapels or buttons, hooks and eyes being the accepted mode of fastening their clothes, and in trousers of a fashion of generations ago. And then to get into an argument with them on the subject of dress, or the propriety of using tobacco, or of looking upon the wine when it is red, well, it is a treat that falls to few of the world outside of Lancaster County. What do you suppose the Lord turned that water into wine for at the marriage in Cana of Galilee? Was the well-known dose one of them administered as a clincher in the teetotal discussion. The only thing I am sorry about now is that I wasn't on hand to get some of that. My, it must have been good. And he smacked his lips, perhaps in joyful anticipation of a more glorious feast that is to be prepared for all good Amishmen some day. No Amish meeting would be complete without the big dinner that is served to all the congregation at its close. While the men were talking religion or crops out under the trees when the services were over, the women were getting the dinner ready. There weren't enough tables to feed everybody at once, so the crowd went in relays. We followed about 50 Amishmen in party number 4. When they entered the dining room, they threw their low-crowned, broad-brimmed hats into a window seat until it was full up to the top of the lower sash. The hats were more nearly alike than their wagons, but every man seemed to catch his own headgear when we went out without any trouble. Following the example of an elder at each table, each one bowed his head in silent prayer before starting at the shunkaflesh, the jabrata, hinkle, the ludvaric, etc., with which the tables were most generously laden. It simplified the dish question very much to use the same cups and saucers right straight through the meal for everybody, without washing or rinsing between times, and the coffee cups consequently had quite a deposit of grounds in them by the time relay number 4 appeared on the scene. It is also customary at the end of each meal to return thanks in silence and with due reverence, although I am afraid this latter quality was somewhat impaired for three of the congregation when a sly wink from the Irish farmhand John broke in upon the solemnity of the Thanksgiving. After that, the men retire from the dining room and make room for another relay, while the women replenish the stock on the tables and make a few minor changes in the chinaware. And the Amish children, where can they be more picturesque? The youngsters had the same proclivities for sport that others have, and the quaintness of the situation strikes one, as he sees them playing tag or teasing the dog or chasing butterflies. They dress exactly like their grandfathers or grandmothers. It seems rather beneath the dignity of those sober-looking little people to be cavorting around the yard, raising the same kind of racket that you'd expect from St. Mary's street kids. As soon as the girl can walk around, she appears in long skirts, to which a white cap, a white handkerchief, and a white apron add their unique finish. The dresses worn by the girls are of various colors for various girls, the skirt and waist being the same in every case. Deep purple is much affected. White, dark brown, drab, and black are also popular. There is only one style of wearing the hair, and there can be no improvement on it for the Amish girls. It is parted accurately in the middle, and comes smoothly down toward the temples, where two small plaits start, which are carried around and gathered into a knot just under the edge of the white mole cap above the nape of the neck. As soon as the little Amishman is entitled to his first pants, he is jumped at once into long trousers of the broad full front variety, and with drawing strings around the waist to keep them attached to his person, just like his older brothers, his fathers, and his grandfathers. He starts in very early too, to get his hair into the style he is to wear through life. It is rather difficult to say which is he and which is his girl cousin when you see them together at an early period in their lives, just as it is the world over. But if you happen to note the abruptness of his haircut at the back of his neck, or to observe that her hair is covered by a cute little cap, you will not make any foolish mistakes when you want to talk to the mother about the baby. A group of 4 children, 2 demure girls in charge of 2 smaller boys, of whom I was lucky in stealing a picture during the progress of the meeting, suggested a question which brought out that information from a neighbor. It may be rather a far-fetched idea to seek for any of Lancaster County's greatness in the dressing of these juvenile Amish. There is little Rebecca, for instance, in a purple dress, that has 2 tucks in the sleeve, one at the hips of her skirt and 2 just above the hem. Diminutive Aaron has a plait in the bottoms of his trousers. The top of them is way up under his arms, while his shirt sleeves are similarly decorated. As the youngsters grow, the clothes are lengthened to suit, and if they outlast their use of them, they are restored to their abbreviated shape and turned over to advancing generations. The styles don't change with the Amish. It seems to me that the plan betokens a thrift and economy that is conspicuously absent in sections of the country that are not in Lancaster County's class, which is first. Pennsylvania had a great deal at the Chicago Fair to make her admired and to give her fame. But if the commissioners could only have introduced an Amish village, I venture to say that the Java village and the Dahomey village and the Japanese village and all the rest would have been eclipsed, and an extra shine would have illuminated the glory of the old Keystone State. The world is less familiar with these peculiar Pennsylvanians and their ways, for they are a quiet and unassuming folk. It would be very good for the world to know more about the ways they have, for in most particulars, they have contributed largely to making Lancaster County the richest county in the United States. Work is the secret of it, and honest toil is a wholesome example to hold up to the rest of humanity. Think of the attractiveness of one of those great big luxurious red and white Amish barns, with mows full of Pennsylvania's agricultural products, and its floor stocked with the latest and best agricultural machinery. And how pleasant it would have been at the fair to escape from the hot-tot-tot man, from the bagpipes, the streets of Cairo, etc., by simply turning into a whitewashed picket gate, walking underneath a grapevine-covered arbor, and there you were at a substantial old Pennsylvania farmhouse, shaded by cherry or apple trees, its red brick walls ornate with honeysuckle and hollyhocks. Perhaps it would not have been consistent with the dignity of this Commonwealth to have had such an exhibit as typical of Pennsylvania, when we had Independence Hall to show the world. But by the next big fair, commissioners will be recognizing the value of these homes as an element in the state's prosperity, and all the world and his wife will then have an opportunity to reflect on the things that beyond all else have made Pennsylvania great. This story came from the great state of Pennsylvania, being reported in the Philadelphia Times of December 6, 1896. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to continue to uncover all of America's lost and forgotten history, then remember before you leave to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember to like and comment below. And we will see you next time on Americana Archives.